Let's read with Eve. Colonel Harland Sanders, KFC creator. Contents. Harland Sanders. What is better than a home-cooked meal? Home-cooked food you don't have to cook yourself. That's what Colonel Harland Sanders began providing to his customers at his gas station. As a side job, he made fried chicken hot, fresh, and fast. Over time, with a single recipe, the Colonel built Kentucky Fried Chicken. The iconic company is the most popular chicken restaurant chain in the world. Harland David Sanders was born on a farm near Henryville, Indiana, on September 9, 1890. He had two younger siblings, Clarence and Catherine. Their parents, Wilbert and Margaret Ann Sanders, were farmers. They worked hard and earned little. Harland's parents were resourceful. They survived the 1893 financial depression, and when Wilbur was injured during farm work, he opened a meat shop in Henryville. But then Wilbert died in 1896. The family struggled. Harland had to learn about hard work from a very early age. Colonel Harland Sanders served hard-working families and travelers. For a time, his gas station became a success, but his chicken made him famous. Young worker. To support 3 children, Harland's mother sewed clothing and cleaned homes. Yet not enough people needed her work, so she got a job at a tomato canning factory. She left Harland at home to feed and care for his siblings. By the age of 6, Harland was cooking meals. As years passed, the family needed more income. When Harland turned 10, his mother sent him to work on their neighbor Charlie Norris's farm. The job paid $2 a month plus meals. The farmer told Harland to go out to the field and clean brush. Harland was still a young boy. He got distracted by nature. All alone he sat and watched squirrels and birds. The farmer fired Harland for loafing. It was the first of many jobs Harland would lose or quit. Yet he felt terrible. He hated disappointing his mother. Harland devoted his life to making it up to her. The area Harland grew up in, Clark County, southern Indiana. Riding the rails. Harland's next job was from Mr. Henry Monk. It paid $4 a month plus meals. This time, Harland worked beside seasoned farmhands. At just 11 years old, he did the work of a grown man. He guided a team of horses and plowed fields. He fed and milked cows. The work was hard, but home life was harder. Harland's mother remarried, and the family moved. When an argument with his stepfather turned violent, Harland left home. He returned to Henryville. Now, he was on his own. Beginning at the age of 12, Harland worked as a farmhand for Sam Wilson. After 2 years, his uncle got him his first job outside of farm work. He collected fares on a streetcar. Harland loved talking to writers, and the job inspired him to seek new opportunities. Harland's size made him appear older than he was. So in 1906, he lied about his age. He said he was 21 instead of 16. Eager for adventure, Harland joined the U.S. Army in October on a ship to Cuba. He tended a herd of mules. It was a lot like a farm for most of the trip. Harland was seasick. His army tour lasted just 4 months. Beginning in 1907, Harland worked railroad jobs. He assisted a blacksmith, shoveled sand and emptied ash buckets, and pounded steaks. Finally, he got a chance to work on trains instead of just around them. With his big size, Harland landed the tough job of feeding the engine with coal by hand. As he rode the rails, Harland saw the state of Alabama. Harland did not attend school past the 6th grade. A service station. One night in 1909, Sanders' train made a stop in Jasper, Alabama. Outside the movie theater, he met Josie King. The two dated for a few weeks and then married. The couple went on to have 3 children, Margaret, Harland Jr., and Mildred. Sanders now had a family of his own to support. Railroad work took Sanders far from home. This was hard for his family. It was time to find a new way to earn a living. Searching for a new job, Sanders hitchhiked. One day he got a ride with a general manager of a Standard Oil Company of Kentucky. He told Sanders about a service station in Nashville, Kentucky that needed a good operator. He asked if Sanders wanted the job. Sanders said yes. Sanders liked being his own boss, and he liked serving people. He filled cars with gasoline, then he took extra steps. He washed windows and inflated tires for no charge. He kept the station open early and late. With such excellent service, Sanders operated the best service station around. He sold more gas than any other station in the area. Like many others, Sanders could not survive the stock market crash in 1929 and the drought that followed. Almost every business suffered at the end of the Great Depression. Sanders had to close his gas station. He was not out of work for long though. His hard work had impressed people at the Shell Oil Company in Middlesboro, Kentucky. Nicholasville, Kentucky is just outside of Lexington. It's surrounded by horse country and is known for its musical heritage. Sanders Cafe. Shell Oil gave Sanders a new station to run in 1930. This one was in Corbin, which was in a coal mining area of eastern Kentucky. The station sat beside Highway 25. It was an easy stop for travelers. Sanders ran his new gas station as well as the first. He did not offer minus. 6 guests at a time shared one table. Truck drivers and businessmen sat next to tourists. They ate whatever Sanders cooked for the day. Soon, strangers ate dinner at his family's table on a regular basis. When there were a lot of customers, Sanders fed the guests first. His family waited until he cooked more food. Sanders served hot ham or fried chicken with cooked greens and hot biscuits. It was not fancy restaurant food. It was good, hearty, southern food of the kind local farm families ate. Sanders had grown up eating this food. He had been cooking it since he was a young boy. Over time, Sanders Service Station became Sanders Service Station and Cafe. When the restaurant took off, it became Sanders Cafe and Service Station. Once the hotel was added, it was called Sanders Court and Cafe. The Colonel. Selling hot meals started as a side business. Yet soon it helped Sanders sell more gas. The family saw success, but then it suffered a personal sadness. After a minor surgery in 1932, Sanders' son, Harland Jr., got an infection and died. He was just 20 years old. As years passed, Sanders needed more space to feed all his customers, so he opened a new restaurant. It could seat 142 people. In 1937, he also added a motel. Sanders had very high standards. He was devoted to service, quality, and improvement. Sanders' restaurant was a source of Kentucky's pride. In 1936, Governor Ruby LaFoon praised Sanders. Side note: in 1949, Colonel Sanders wore a black suit and a tie. His famous white suit and black tie came later. Contributions to the state's cuisine. He named him to the Honorable Order of Kentucky Colonels. Lieutenant Governor Lawrence Weatherby also named Sanders Colonel in 1949. From then on, he dressed like Southern gentlemen and went by Colonel Sanders. In 1939, a fire destroyed Sanders Court and Cafe. The disaster did not stop Sanders. He rebuilt a bigger and better restaurant and motel. More and more families stopped to buy hot, complete meals. Sanders called his food home meal replacements. He described his chicken as Sunday dinner, 7 days a week. Side note: the Honorable Order of Kentucky Colonels still exists today. The group names honorary colonels and donates money to many charities. The Secret 11. For years, Sanders experimented with a special recipe for fried chicken. In 1939, he perfected it. He dredged his meat in flour mixed with 11 herbs and spices. He loved the final flavor, and he kept the recipe a secret. Around the same time, Sanders perfected his cooking method. Frying on the stove took too long. Deep frying lowered quality. In 1939, Colonel Sanders bought a pressure cooker. used with water. The new invention steamed vegetables, but Sanders used oil and made a pressure fryer. He experimented a lot. The result was tender, juicy chicken in just a few minutes. Once again, as business went well, Sanders' personal life suffered. After 39 years together, he and Josephine divorced in 1947. 2 years later, Sanders married Claudia Leddington Price, a waitress at his cafe. They remained together for the rest of his life. Meanwhile, Sanders continued to learn about the restaurant industry. In 1950, he attended a National Restaurant Association convention in Chicago, Illinois. There, he met a restaurant owner, Pete Harland of Utah. A year later, Sanders visited Harland in Salt Lake City. In Harland's restaurant kitchen, Sanders dredged chicken in seasoning flour. He cooked it in a pressure cooker. He served his fried chicken, mashed potatoes, and gravy to Harland and his family. Harland didn't show it at first, but the meal was a hit. Life's Detour. Harland knew a good thing when he tasted it. He added Colonel Sanders' Kentucky Fried Chicken to his menu in his own restaurant. He posted a big picture of Colonel Sanders and advertised on the radio. It was great food with good advertising. Harland became the first Kentucky Fried Chicken franchisee in 1952. He paid Sanders 5 cents for every chicken he sold. Sanders returned to Sanders Court and Cafe. But in 1955, Highway 25 was rerouted. The new road bypassed Carbon. Cars no longer drove anywhere near Sanders' restaurant. Business died. Sanders sold his property to pay his taxes and any remaining bills. After a lifetime of hard work, Sanders was nearly broke. He had a little money in savings and received only $105 a month from Social Security. However, Sanders owned one thing of value. He knew how to make the best fried chicken. Making a brave choice, he decided to let more restaurants sell chicken using his original recipe. He needed to expand his chicken franchise operation. It certainly was no side business anymore. In 1957, Harland began selling Kentucky Fried Chicken in buckets. Customers can get 14 pieces of chicken, mashed potatoes, and gravy for $3.50. Expanding. At first, Sanders and his wife did all the work themselves. Sanders mixed big tubs of his special blend of herbs and spices. He bought a lot of pressure cookers. He loaded the trunk of his car with these supplies. Then he drove around enlisting new franchises. He even slept in the car to save money. Claudia stayed at home to fill in the orders he called in. In restaurants, Sanders fried samples of his recipe. He faced rejection many times, but he had always been a good salesman. If restaurants agreed to sell his chicken, Sanders made handshake deals. Like Harland, owners promised to pay a nickel for every order of chicken they served. Sanders was a perfectionist. His chicken had to be cooked exactly right. Some franchise owners failed to follow instructions. They lost the rights to cook his original recipe. In July 1959, the Colonel and Claudia moved to Shelbyville, Kentucky. On this big property, he added an office and warehouse space. The new home became Kentucky Fried Chicken's headquarters. Sanders worked tirelessly for 4 years. By 1960, more than 200 restaurants were selling Kentucky Fried Chicken in the United States and Canada. That year, Sanders was included into America's Restaurant Hall of Fame. A tough choice. Kentucky Fried Chicken continued to expand. By 1964, there were more than 600 locations in the United States and Canada. The company attracted a lawyer named John Y. Brown Jr., and a group of investors offered to purchase the company. Sanders had to make a tough decision. His chicken was his pride and joy, but the company had grown too big to manage on his own. So in 1964, Sanders signed a yellow piece of scrap paper and sold his company to Brown for $2 million. Sanders was promised $40,000 every year for the rest of his life. This was later raised to $75,000 a year. He also kept franchises in Canada. Not bad for a guy who was broke less than a decade ago. Commercial star. Kentucky Fried Chicken headquarters moved to Louisville, Kentucky in 1969. The bold red and white striped restaurants were easily recognized and were everywhere. Brown grew the number of franchises to more than 3,500 locations, and the company continued to expand overseas. Brown helped Kentucky Fried Chicken into a worldwide success. In 1971, he sold his interest in the company for a huge profit. The Colonel's Chicken had become a multi-million-dollar food chain. The Colonel's image also remained important to the company. In commercials, he wore his white suit and boasted about his original recipe chicken. His white hair, dark rimmed glasses, and black string tie added to his distinguished image. Sanders also appeared in talk shows and game shows. He became a major public figure. Sanders stayed busy outside of Kentucky Fried Chicken too. He and Claudia opened a new restaurant on their property. They called it the Colonel's Lady. Later, the name changed to the Claudia Sanders Diner House. There, the Colonel offered his two specialties, Southern hospitality and family-style food. Sanders received the Horatio Alger Award in 1965. This award honors people who have succeeded through honesty and hard work and care about giving back. Generous legacy. Until he was early 90, Sanders visited Kentucky Fried Chicken restaurants all around the world. He traveled 250,000 miles a year. He had fulfilled his desire to give customers a home meal replacement. In June 1980, Sanders was diagnosed with leukemia. He contracted pneumonia. Colonel Sanders died on December 16, 1980, at the age of 90. He is buried in Louisville, Kentucky. More than 1,200 people attended his memorial service. To further honor him, the mayor asked that flags fly at half-staff. The Colonel left behind a generous legacy. The Kentucky Fried Chicken Foundation, Inc. was formed in 1998. It was inspired by the Colonel's belief in hard work and giving back. It funds disaster relief, scholarships for education, and other causes. Yum brand owns KFC, Taco Bell, and Pizza Hut. Kentucky Fried Chicken continues to thrive in Sanders' absence. In 1936, it was acquired by Pepsi-Cola Inc. KFC Corporation is still headquartered in Louisville, Kentucky. KFC has more than 17,000 restaurants in more than 115 countries and territories. Every day, 12 million customers around the world eat KFC. More than 1 billion chicken dinners are served every year. The Colonel's image is still featured on KFC packaging, and people can still carry home his Sunday dinner. Timeline. International taste. Glossary. Websites. Please leave your comments below and remember to like and subscribe. See you soon!